What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be doing a final review of Ghosts. I've done this for the past 2 Call of Duties, and I base it on 7 different criteria that I feel makes a good Call of Duty game. And that is gun balance, perk balance, killstreak balance, innovation, map design, connection or the netcode, and developer support. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so I'm going to start this off by saying that everything I say in this video is going to be my personal opinion. Some of you guys may agree or disagree with me, and that's totally fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and I would like to see your guys' opinion in the comment section below. Also, I'm comparing this to other Call of Duty games and not games in general. So I'm not comparing the gun balance of this game to the gun balance in Battlefield or Destiny or anything like that. I'm just looking at this game as a Call of Duty game and not as a game in general. Okay, so let's kick it off with gun balance. For the pros of gun balance in Ghosts, I found that nearly every single gun in the game was viable. Of course, some were better than others. That's going to happen. That's always going to happen in a first-person shooter. There's always going to be some that stand out above the rest, but you could give me any gun in the game, and I could still do quite well with that gun. Providing I had a little bit more control over my class and can pick my own perks, but we'll get into perks in a little bit. Also, one thing I really liked about gun balance in Ghosts compared to previous Call of Duties was the sniper balance. I feel the sniper rifles have been the most balanced they've been since Black Ops 1. And the reason for this is quickscoping is something that is difficult but still doable in Ghosts. A lot of people will disagree with me and say that quickscoping is dead and it's impossible, but that is not the case. Quickscoping is far from impossible. I'm somebody that doesn't even quickscope much, and I can go in a match and I can hit several quickscopes if I take my enemy off guard, which is how I think it should be balanced. In a close range encounter, the full auto weapon should always have the advantage against a sniper rifle, but if that sniper takes the enemy off guard, then they should have a chance to get a quickscope off. I feel like that's completely fair and balanced. And also, give me a sniper rifle, I can lead almost any lobby of team deathmatch with a sniper rifle. So I think sniper balance is great in this game. A skilled player can still do very well with a sniper rifle, but it's not easy to just pick up and run around and comfortably win gunfights against SMG users up close. It takes a lot more skill than in Black Ops 2, in my opinion. Moving on to the cons of gun balance in Ghosts, I would say the shotguns could have used a little bit of a buff. Now, I'm not talking about the Bulldog. I feel like the Bulldog was actually balanced quite well when you look at the time to kill and the map design and everything. I feel like the Bulldog was pretty much perfect as far as balance goes, and I know some people will definitely disagree with me there as well. But the other shotguns, I feel like they were a little bit underwhelming, and therefore they never really got used, or very, very rarely. I found them to be quite inconsistent, especially the TAC-12. I feel like the TAC-12 should have had a little bit more consistency to it. I found sometimes right up close I kept getting hit markers, even though I was perfectly on target. It may have been a connection issue or something along those lines, but it felt like it was never really worth it to use a TAC-12 because the time to kill was so fast. Basically, if you missed a shot, you were going to die because it took you that little bit of time to pump the shotgun and get your next round ready to go. So I feel like it could have been a little bit more consistent, but I don't know, it's hard to strike that balance with a one-hit kill weapon. Also, I would say the MTAR was maybe a little bit on the powerful side. It had all of the advantages of the SMGs, so like all of the movement and mobility advantages, so you're really fast, you have your SMG mobility, and your basically built-in quick draw and everything like that. But it also had some traits of an assault rifle, so it's quite accurate, not a whole lot of recoil, and it had great range characteristics. And I feel like maybe the range could have been nerfed a little bit on the MTAR. The only other gun that I really feel is imbalanced in the game, and it's probably the most imbalanced, is the M27 LMG. This was really, really powerful, especially when you put a thermal sight on it, and I really would have liked to see them increase the recoil of this weapon. It just had too many positives to it. It had, I believe, the fastest reload time of all the LMGs. It was just a laser beam. You could kill people across the map with no issues at all, like really, really, really quickly. I believe it was only a 4-shot kill at really long range, or maybe 3-shot even. And with a thermal sight on it, it just made it way too easy to use, and it kind of catered to people that sat in corners, surrounded by IEDs, locking down a huge portion of the map with ease. So I feel like it could have been nerfed a little bit and they could have added some more recoil to it. So overall for gun balance in Ghosts, I actually felt it was quite good. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, so let's move on to perk balance. So for the pros, this new perk system, it gave us the freedom to use any perk that we wanted to use in our class. Unfortunately, this is also the issue with the perk system for me. On paper, this system definitely appealed to me, so before the game even came out, I was really excited for this perk system, and I thought it was going to work out really well. But in practice, I found it basically just eliminated variety. There was very little trade-off with the perk system, so basically if you weren't using certain perks, you put yourself at a pretty major disadvantage. So it was just a given for me that I had to use Dead Silence, I had to use Focus, I had to use Ready Up. If I was using an assault rifle, I had to use either Quick Draw or Stalker. And if I wasn't using those perks, I was going to be putting myself at a pretty big disadvantage. So just after all those perks, you suddenly only have a couple perk points left. So there's not really any variety. And I don't like how that worked out. I'd prefer a system where you have perks that are put in the same tier as each other, the 3-tiered system. I prefer that now after playing with this because there's a trade-off. So you can't have just all of the best perks in the game on every one of your class. You have to make a trade-off, and you have to say this class is designed to excel in this area, but they have to give up something else to excel in that area. And that's why I feel like Call of Duty should be returning to the tiered system, and I'm glad they are returning to that system for Advanced Warfare. So overall for perk balance, like I said, it looks good on paper, but it didn't work out so great in practice, and I feel like it was a little bit frustrating, but it wasn't quite game-breaking. So I am going to give perk balance a 7 out of 10 in Ghosts. It didn't ruin the game for me, but it could have been better. Alright, so now moving on to Killstreak Balance. For the pros for Killstreak Balance, I really like that they brought back class-specific streak setups. So basically, for each class, they could have their own kill streak setup. So you could have a support class, you could have the specialist class, you could have assault classes, and each one could be different. So you weren't stuck with 3 score streaks or 3 kill streaks for the entire game like you were in Black Ops 2. That's one thing I was really happy that they brought back in Ghosts. Unfortunately, there are a whole lot more cons to this system. The cons, well, basically they brought point streaks back rather than the score streak system. In my mind, this was a big step backwards. Back when Modern Warfare 3 came out, it was a step forwards for sure, in my opinion. But then Black Ops 2 pushed it even further with the score streak system, and I feel the score streak system is far superior to the point streak system, especially for objective game modes. So I'm not very happy that they brought back point streaks. The next con is the higher assault streaks were very underwhelming and actually quite boring to use. I'm thinking like the Loki. It was really underwhelming. You rarely got very many kills with it. It wasn't fun to use by any means. It was a big clunky, slow-moving thing, and it didn't feel rewarding when you earned one. And I feel like when you earn a streak that, I don't know, what was it, like a 15 or 17 kill streak, I feel like you should be rewarded pretty significantly for your efforts. And I'm not saying it should be quite as powerful as, say, Modern Warfare 2's streaks, but you should kind of feel like a badass when you go on a high kill streak and you earn this high kill streak. I feel like you should be rewarded for that. Another issue with the kill streak, this is a lot more specific, this is the dog kill streak. I feel like the dog was extremely annoying. I'm not going to call it overpowered because it didn't typically get like a ton of kills and it didn't completely change the tide of a game. It was just very annoying because there was no chance to counter a dog in a lot of situations. And it is a lower kill streak. So I don't mind, let's say, like Predator missiles. I really don't mind a Predator missile because you can see it on your minimap, it pops up, and you have a chance to try and evade that Predator missile. This is not the case with the dog. Most of the time, you don't even know there's a dog on the map, and most of the time, you can't hear the dog. I know it's supposed to growl or bark when you get near it, but most of the time, you can't hear that. And then oftentimes by the time you see the dog, it's too late. There's no chance for you to actually kill that dog before it closes the gap and kills you. And even if you do, their owner will typically kill you. So I feel like there was no counterplay with the dog. And one of the simplest fixes that they could have implemented for the dog is give it a rattling collar, like we've seen in the dog kill streaks in the past. So you can hear them coming and you can react to them. They're still deadly, but somebody that's really paying attention has a little bit of an ability to counter the dog effectively, or even avoid them. The last thing I'm going to talk about with Killstreak Balance is the Oracle. Now, the Oracle, I feel like, is just a little bit too powerful to be a support streak. Or if it is going to be a support streak, I think it should have been a higher support streak, even higher than it currently is. Because I feel like the Oracle can actually turn the tides on a match, and I feel like support shouldn't be able to do that. You should have to earn the ability to get streaks that actually affect the outcome of the game. I feel like support should just give you and your team a little bit of a boost, like a UAV or an ammo crate or ballistic vests. I don't feel like you should have the ability to see through walls and see all of your enemies' movements from a support streak. So overall for Killstreak Balance in Ghosts, I found they weren't very fun to use, they weren't very rewarding, and some of them were just not balanced properly. They didn't have the proper counterplay. Because of this, I'm going to give Killstreak Balance in Ghosts a 4 out of 10. So the next section that we're going to look at is innovation. And there's actually quite a few things to talk about here, so this is going to be a long section for sure. So first, let's talk about the pros. First off, we have the new minimap. So it's a rectangular minimap that gives you a bit of a wider view on the map. And I actually really liked the new minimap with Ghosts. And I like how it's actually returning as a perk in Advanced Warfare as well. The next thing that I liked about their innovation is the orange hit marker when you got a kill. This is something I feel like Call of Duty should have had a long time ago. It's something that I'm really happy with. It did take them a long time to implement it. Like, they didn't bring it in until, I don't know, a month or two ago, something like that. So I feel like it would have been sweet to have that right at the beginning of the game. But hey, they added it at least, which is kind of nice. The next thing that I feel was great for innovation was the fact that you can neutralize flags in Domination. That was a pretty cool addition, and it definitely changed a little bit of the dynamics with Domination. Next up, the field orders. I actually like the idea of field orders in Ghosts. This is also going to be a con though, so I will be talking about the negatives of this, but the idea of a field order, completing some little objective in the middle of a game that causes you to play in some different ways, so like knife an enemy or get a kill or get 2 kills while crouching or something like that, I like that idea. But I don't like what you can earn with it exactly. And this leads me to the next point, which is something that I did like, was the inclusion of a map-specific kill streak. I like how they had map-specific kill streaks. Unfortunately, I didn't like how you earned them, so I feel like they shouldn't have been earned through field orders. Instead, I feel like you should have earned them through a regular care package. I feel like the regular care package should have returned as an assault streak for maybe 5 or 6 kills or something like that. And then I would be okay with the map-specific streaks being earned from a care package. Another thing that I liked that they innovated on was the addition of a couple game modes. I really enjoyed Cranked, and I would actually like to play Cranked a little bit more often, but unfortunately nobody plays it, so I can't even play it on Xbox One. Search and Rescue, it's not really for me. I'm not really a big fan of Search and Rescue, but I can appreciate the game mode, and I know a lot of people really enjoy it, so I think it is a good thing that they brought Search and Rescue into the game. Okay, now it's time to go into the cons of the innovation, and this is where I feel like Ghosts really went wrong, and they strayed a little bit too far away from Call of Duty. So first, we have the unlock system. They completely changed up the unlock system, and they brought in the squad point system. I am not a fan. I've mentioned this several times in my videos throughout the year. I'm not a fan of this system. Essentially, you can have the perfect loadout at level 1 for every prestige, and it makes prestiging not all that prestigious. There's no sacrifice to actually prestiging. It's just a number that increases as your playtime increases. So I feel like the squad point system really sucked there. It also didn't give you any incentive to branch out and try new things. I like being sort of pushed to try out a few different perks that I wouldn't normally use in my perfect loadout because I haven't earned them yet. So like when I prestige in older Call of Duties, I like that I didn't have Dead Silence maybe right at the beginning and I had to get up to level 30 or whatever it was to unlock that perk. It gave me something to work towards, and I actually felt a sense of accomplishment once I earned that perk, or I earned a specific gun or something on the way through my prestiges. So that's what really keeps me coming back for more in Call of Duty, and Ghosts really screwed this up in my opinion. Next up, we have the operations system. This was a terrible implementation in my mind. They did end up going back on this. They changed it about halfway through the game's life cycle, but at the beginning of the game's life cycle, you could only have, like, I think it was 50 challenges or operations unlocked to be able to accomplish at any given time. And this was a stupid system, in my opinion, because you could accomplish some really incredible challenge that only happens like once a year. Like, I don't know, maybe knife a juggernaut and get a kill with a knife against a juggernaut. That's something that doesn't happen all the time. I know if you're really trying for it, you can probably do it. But what if you accomplish that and your operation isn't active for that? You get no recognition for actually completing that challenge. And that was just a ridiculous system, in my opinion. And I feel like it took a lot away from the game. So that was a complete failure in innovation. Next, this is something that's relatively minor, but it still was a step backwards in my opinion, and that is the leaderboards and how they sorted the leaderboards. I really liked in Black Ops 2 how they sorted the leaderboards by score per minute, because I feel like score per minute is the best representation of a player's effect on the game. I don't want to say skills so much as how much they actually affect the outcome of the game. And score per minute was nowhere in Ghosts, and I feel like it kind of just encouraged people to play for kill-death ratio, but that's just my opinion on that. I feel like that was one relatively minor step backwards. Next, this one's actually a pretty big one, and that is Clan Wars. I feel like Clan Wars is a terribly implemented system. I've done a whole video about that. I think I'll just link the video in the description below because my opinions have not changed on that, and I don't want to get into it too much in this video, but let's just say I really didn't like Clan Wars because I'm a solo player. I don't want to play in a clan. I enjoy just hopping on and playing Call of Duty, and I enjoy games where I have a realistic chance of winning a game. I don't mind losing, but I want a game that I have a realistic chance of winning, and if you're a solo player during Clan Wars, that isn't going to happen, or at least very rarely, you aren't going to have a chance of winning a game. And it doesn't reward skill, in my opinion. So that's just my quick thoughts on Clan Wars and why I don't like it. The next thing I really didn't like, and this kind of relates to what I was talking about, I don't like the one-kill chem strike, as I like to call it. This is essentially earning the really powerful map-specific streaks through a field order, which can potentially be just one kill. So you can get one kill while prone, and you suddenly have a chem strike. This is completely wrong in my opinion. I feel like you should have to actually earn those streaks, rather than get one kill and get lucky with a care package. So that was a big downside in innovation, in my opinion. Next, Blitz. I feel like Blitz was a terrible game mode, even on paper. Like, looking at it beforehand, it didn't look like it was going to be a good game mode. I don't know what they were thinking with that one. Capture the Flag is far superior, in my opinion, and I'm sure a whole lot of people agree with me on that one. Blitz was a complete failure. Next up, this is something that's pretty specific. I wasn't going to talk about specifics too much here, but I had to mention it somewhere, so I thought I'd throw it in innovation, and that is IEDs. This is something that I feel like they buffed the defensive equipment way too much here. So before, in previous Call of Duties, I'm going to pick on Black Ops 2 here, but this happened in previous Call of Duties as well. They had defensive equipment, but these defensive pieces of equipment could be countered without using a perk, so bouncing Bettys. All you have to do is crouch and you avoid all damage from that bouncing Betty. Claymores. They have to be placed really strategically, and they're quite easy for enemies to see. You can see those lasers if you're paying attention, and if you're running lightweight, a lot of times you can run right past a Claymore without being killed, unless your enemy has really spent the time to learn how to place Claymores properly. IEDs, they get the best of both worlds. They get 360 degree trigger and kill radius. And yes, they did nerf them to a point where if you jump, it won't kill you, but it will still damage you to the point where you have almost no chance against the enemy that you've just alerted to your presence. So I feel like IEDs were a really big issue with this game, and it was a big failure in innovation. It was a step backwards. Now finally, for innovation, this is the last thing that I wanted to mention. There's a bunch of little things as well, but I feel like they took a step backward as far as their competitive game modes went. So I'm talking like League Play or Clan versus Clan. League Play was a far superior system that appealed to a whole lot more people, and Clan Wars was, I don't know, it felt kind of rushed, and it was just a system that not a whole lot of people wanted to play. that weren't already really into the competitive scene. So I feel like they took a step backwards with Clan versus Clan. That's what it's called. So innovation in Ghosts, they did try a lot of new things. A lot of people say that they didn't do anything new and it's basically just copying all the old Call of Duties. I disagree with that. They did try a bunch of new things, but a lot of it was terribly implemented, or it was just straight up bad ideas. And I feel like they kind of strayed a little bit too far away from the Call of Duty formula. This is why I'm going to give them a 3 out of 10 for innovation. Okay, so let's move on to map design. Now, I will admit at the beginning here, this is probably one of the most subjective categories that I'm going to be talking about, so this is going to be my opinion on the map design in Ghosts. Some of you will definitely disagree with me here. Some people really enjoy the map design in Ghosts, and to be honest, I'm not really a fan. So first I'll talk about the pros and the things I do like about the map design. So first off, I really like the variety of the maps in the game. They definitely have variety in not only like color schemes and themes and things like that, but also the way that the maps play. They have some really big maps, some smaller maps, and no two maps really play the same in my opinion. Also, I kind of mentioned this already just now, the themes. They had some really cool themes with their maps. I liked how they had like a castle map. They had kind of like a modern ghost town map of Octane. What other ones? They had the tank factory. That was kind of a pretty cool theme that they had with that map. Just all of the different themes that they have, I really enjoyed that with the map design. And finally, I like how the maps, generally, they supported a variety of playstyles. Now, shotguns may have been neglected a little bit with some of the map design, but for the most part, you could use pretty much any type of weapon and still be somewhat successful with it. So, I think they did a pretty good job of balance in that sense. Now for the cons. I feel like the maps were a little bit overly complex, and this overly complex design really lacked flow, and it lacked predictable flow. So the average player couldn't really predict enemy movement because there was just too many areas that they could move in. There weren't really any predictable choke points, or very few anyways. And I feel like because of this, they didn't want to go out and actually try and move around. And instead they wanted to just wait for the enemies to come to them because it was too scary to go out into the open when you didn't know where your enemies were coming from. So I feel like the overly complex design definitely led to slower gameplay. Next, for a con, I felt like the maps were a little bit cluttered and they felt almost unplanned in a lot of different areas. So comparing this to Black Ops 2, Black Ops 2 had pretty much every single piece of cover made sense. It had a counter to it. It was there for a reason. So every tire that was there that you could stand behind that was like chest level, it was there for a reason. It wasn't just randomly thrown there. In some of the ghost maps, I feel like the designers were just like, okay, let's throw a car right there. Let's throw a broken wall right here. Perfect, it's done. And they didn't really think too much about the implications of putting a piece of clutter somewhere. So I feel like that could have been one of the issues as well, but that's just my personal preference on a map. I prefer a really balanced map that works well for competitive play, but some people will like the cluttered style where it's more realistic, I guess you could say. The next con is I feel these maps didn't work very well with spawns, which also discouraged movement. People, for the most part, couldn't predict spawns on these maps or had a very difficult time predicting spawns on these maps. And because of that, once again, they didn't know where their enemies were going to be coming from, where their enemies were going to be spawning. So they just played a lot slower, or they didn't move around at all because they were scared they were going to get spawned on. And this is coming from somebody that probably is one of the best at learning and knowing the spawns in Ghosts. I'm not trying to sound really cocky or anything, but I've spent countless hours analyzing spawns in Ghosts in order to create my spawn guide series. And I feel like I have a really good grasp for the spawns, and I feel like it takes way too much to understand them. I'm not saying we should have like handouts for every player and say they should know every spawn point, like the game should tell you every single time a player spawns where they spawn. But I feel like even the average player should be able to have a general indication of where their enemies are going to be spawning and where their enemies are coming from. And this is what we get in a lot of the Black Ops 2 maps. We have basically, you know, this is your side of the map, that is their side of the map. So even the newest player can usually tell that the enemies are coming from that general direction. So that's one of the issues I find with the maps as well. It didn't work so great for spawns. Now finally, the color palette. It was really washed out on the maps, and I know this is just an art design decision, so this wasn't like an unintended decision. This is definitely something they said, this is what our art design is. But I don't really like that art design in a fast-paced shooter. This is supposed to be a fast-paced shooter. It's not really all that fast-paced, as we all know. But Call of Duty has always been a fast-paced shooter, and I don't want to play a game of hide and seek. I want enemies to be popping, and I want them to be encouraged to move around. When you have it so players can blend into the map, or they can hide in a bush or a dark corner or something like that and be nearly invisible, that discourages movement and it encourages them to actually hide in those corners. So make them pop and make them come out and play. That's how I feel Call of Duty should be. So overall for map design in Ghosts, I feel like the map design really catered to campers and it really discouraged movement. And because of this, I'm going to give map design a 4 out of 10. Okay, so moving on to the next section, this is connection or netcode. Now this is one where everybody's experience is different. Everybody has a different connection, so everybody's experience will be different. And I want to say at the beginning here, I know you guys see me skip around and freeze a lot in my videos, especially in my live commentaries. But that's something that I'm fully aware is on my internet service provider's end, and it's because I live in a rural area and I'm basically using a really inconsistent form of 4G to play the game. So I'm going to ignore the skips in my review here because I can't really blame that on the game when I know it is my issue or my ISP's issue. So I'm going to ignore that with my rating on this. And aside from those issues, I found the latency and the hit detection, for me anyways, has been amazing in Ghosts. Actually the best I've seen in a Call of Duty. And that's on the Xbox One. When I was playing on the Xbox 360 before I got my Xbox One, I found the connections were about average for Call of Duty. They weren't great. A lot of the times the hit detection wasn't perfect. I felt like sometimes I was shooting directly through enemies without getting hit markers. But on the Xbox One, I feel like my experience, my connection experience was great, aside from my personal issues. So overall for Ghosts, I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10 for connections. Okay, so finally we have developer support. Now this one isn't going to take very long at all to explain. Basically, they tried. They tried to implement some balancing patches to the weapons, and yeah, that helped a little bit. They tried to balance the spawns. Yeah, the spawns may be improved a little bit over time, but they're still not great. Basically, they tried, but the game was just unfinished in my opinion. It felt like a lot of their patches were things that should have been done far before the game even released. It felt like they released an unfinished product and then they worked on finishing it throughout its life cycle. And I feel like that was just completely wrong. I feel like the game itself had too many deep issues with various things, the time to kill, the map design, just a bunch of different things, the whole unlock and operation system, and it was basically too far gone to really do anything to fix as far as patches go. So I'll give them a little bit of points for trying, but I'm going to have to give developer support a 5 out of 10. So overall, as a game, I don't hate Ghosts. This is a common misconception with me. It is my least favorite Call of Duty to date, but I don't hate it, and I don't regret putting the time I put into it. A lot of people seem to think that I do hate it. Like a lot of other YouTubers, they will straight out come and say, they'll come out and say, I hate the game. That's not me. It's okay. I did enjoy it. I did have my moments with it, but it was my least enjoyable Call of Duty to date. And this is mainly due to the unlock system, in my opinion. I think that's the #1 glaring issue for me, but there are several other issues, especially the things that contribute to slower gameplay styles and the things that cater to camping styles. So overall, as a game, I'm going to give Ghosts a 6 out of 10. So I'd like to hear what you guys think about Ghosts. What is your final review? If you'd like, you can even use the same 7 criteria that I used. I'll leave that in the description so it's easy to copy and paste into a comment, if I can remember to do that for you. I'm really interested to see how many of you like it and how many of you hate it, because I know there's probably some people out there that do like the game. Also, I'm going to leave a link to both the final review I did for Black Ops 2, as well as the final review I did for Modern Warfare 3, just in case you guys are interested. That's basically the reason for making this video, is I made it so I can look back on it maybe next year and see if I'm still feeling the same way about it. I look back at my Black Ops 2 one and I still feel pretty strongly the same way that I felt about Black Ops 2 when it ended at the end of its life cycle. A lot of people say that well, that I follow the Call of Duty cycle, and that's all I'm doing here. All I'm just saying is Ghost sucks because it's the current game, and I'm praising the old game. This is not the case for me. I'm not a big fan of Ghosts, and this isn't just me following the cycle. I've always liked Black Ops 2. I always thought it was nearly a perfect game, and you guys will see that in the review if you guys want to go back and watch that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys next time.